Imagine for a moment, a being of cosmic power, born before the very creation of the world, capable of shaping reality with a single thought. Now picture that same being walking through Middle-earth as a bent old man, leaning on a wooden staff, fighting orcs with an ordinary sword. Why would a Maia, an angelic spirit who took part in the song of creation alongside the Valar themselves, choose to limit himself so greatly? Why did Gandalf the Grey never reveal his true power? Welcome, friends of Middle-earth. Today we will uncover one of the greatest mysteries surrounding the most beloved of wizards. Prepare yourselves for a journey that will take us from the timeless halls of Ilúvatar to the depths of Khazad-dûm, as we uncover secrets Tolkien himself revealed in his most intimate letters. Before we dive into this epic tale, tell me in the comments, from which city or country are you watching? It's always amazing to see how Tolkien's work brings together people from every corner of the world. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any of our journeys through Middle-earth. After all, as Gandalf himself once said, not all those who wander are lost. To understand why Gandalf never used his true power, we must first understand who he really was. And here, my friends, the story becomes fascinating. Gandalf was not simply a mortal wizard who had learned a few tricks. No. He was Olórin, a Maia of the gardens of Lórien in Valinor. Before the sun and moon existed, before the first stars ever shone in the sky, Olórin already walked the sacred halls of Aman, learning wisdom from Nienna, the Vala of tears and compassion. Just imagine this for a moment. While the first elves were still awakening by the waters of Cuiviénen, Olórin was already a being of pure power, an imperishable flame born from the thought of Ilúvatar. He witnessed the shaping of Arda, took part in the great battles against Melkor in the Elder Days, and knew each of the Valar personally. But then, around the year 1000 of the Third Age, something extraordinary happened. The Valar, concerned with the growing shadow in the east, yes, Sauron was rising again, decided to send emissaries to Middle-earth, not as conquerors or divine generals, but as counselors and guides, the Istari. Here begins the first veil of mystery. When Manwë, king of the Valar, summoned the Maiar for this mission, he set very specific rules. And these rules, my friends, are the key to understanding everything. Tolkien reveals in his letters, especially in letter 156, that the Istari were sent under one fundamental condition. They had to incarnate in the physical forms of elderly men. Not young, vigorous warriors, not radiant beings of light, but old men. Why? The answer is profound and reveals the wisdom of the Valar. They wanted the free peoples of Middle-earth to learn to resist evil through their own strength and will. If the Maiar had come in all their glory, it would have simply been a repetition of the wars of the Elder Days, gods fighting gods while mortals stood by, powerless. But there was more. When they took on physical form, the Istari also assumed their limitations. They could feel hunger, fatigue, pain. They could even be killed, as indeed happened to Gandalf in Khazad-dûm. This incarnation was not a mere fantasy or disguise. It was a true diminution of their being. As Tolkien himself wrote, they were sent to contest the power of Sauron should he arise again, and to move elves and men and all living beings of goodwill to valiant deeds. Note carefully, to move to action, not to act in their place. But what powers were these that Gandalf concealed? Here the narrative becomes truly epic. As a Maia, Gandalf possessed abilities that would make the greatest feats of mortal heroes seem like child's play. He could, in theory, manipulate the very elements, change his form at will, command the forces of nature with a thought. In the Elder Days, the Maiar fought alongside the Valar, shaping mountains and seas, creating and destroying with power that defies imagination. Remember Sauron? He was also a Maia, originally a servant of Aule the Smith. We saw what Sauron was capable of even in a diminished form, forging the One Ring, corrupting the Nine, transforming into a wolf, a serpent, or a shadow. If Sauron could do all that, imagine what Gandalf, servant of Manwë and pupil of Nienna, could accomplish if he fully unleashed his power. There are subtle moments where we glimpse this power. When Gandalf faced the Balrog, another corrupted Maia, in the depths of Moria, he did not fight with sword and staff alone. As he later revealed, "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor." This was not poetic metaphor. Gandalf was invoking his true nature, the undying fire of Ilúvatar that burns in the heart of all the Ainur. For 10 days, from the deepest abyss to the peak of Zirak-Sigil, two Maiar battled with power unseen in Middle-earth since the Elder Days. Now, let us examine specific moments where Gandalf clearly restrained himself, where he could have resolved situations with devastating displays of power, but chose not to. The Siege of Minas Tirith. During the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, Gandalf defended the gates of Minas Tirith against the Witch King of Angmar. Here was a Maia facing a mere corrupted mortal. For all the Witch King's might, he was still just a man enslaved by one of the 9 rings. Gandalf could have obliterated him with a fraction of his true power, but he did not. Why? After the destruction of the ring, when the hobbits returned to find the Shire devastated by Sharky, Saruman, Gandalf refused to intervene. He had the power to instantly restore the entire land, to drive away the ruffians with a gesture, but he told the hobbits, "You must deal with this yourselves. You were trained for this." The Council of Elrond. During the debates over the fate of the One Ring, Gandalf could have simply taken the ring and carried it himself to Mount Doom. With his powers as a Maia, it would have surely been faster and more efficient. But he knew the terrible cost of such a choice. And here we reach the heart of the matter. Gandalf's restraint was not weakness, it was his greatest strength. Every time he chose not to use his full power, he was fulfilling his true mission. See, if Gandalf had defeated Sauron with the raw might of a Maia, what would the Free Peoples have learned? That they always needed a higher power to save them? That they were incapable of resisting evil on their own? Tolkien, deeply Catholic, wove in a profound theological truth here. Free will is sacred. The Valar respected the freedom of Ilúvatar's children so deeply that they would rather see Middle-earth fall into darkness than impose salvation upon them. As Tolkien wrote in Letter 131, "The power of Gandalf is the power to influence and encourage, not to command or coerce." Every act of restraint was an act of faith in the Free Peoples, a recognition that they possessed within themselves the strength to resist evil. But there was another aspect, subtler and more moving. Gandalf carried the weight of countless ages. He had seen the glory of Valinor, witnessed the fall of Númenor, observed the rise and fall of innumerable kingdoms. With all this knowledge, with all this power, the temptation must have been overwhelming. Imagine knowing that with a single gesture you could end suffering, but also knowing that this gesture would rob those you came to protect of something precious, their ability to grow, to choose, to become heroes through their own merit. There is a revealing passage where Gandalf admits his fear of the One Ring, not because the ring could corrupt him in the usual sense, but because through it, Gandalf would become terrible in his justice. "I would be a benevolent tyrant," he confesses, "but a tyrant still." And so we arrive at the great revelation, the truth that resonates throughout Tolkien's work. True power lies not in strength, but in the wisdom to know when not to use it. Gandalf the Grey, wandering the dusty paths of Middle-earth, smoking his pipe and telling stories to curious hobbits, was infinitely more powerful in his restraint than he would ever have been unleashing storms and earthquakes. Every word of encouragement to Frodo when the journey seemed impossible, every moment he chose to advise rather than command, every time he trusted in the courage of mortals instead of solving everything with divine power, these were Gandalf's true miracles. Think of Galadriel refusing the One Ring, saying, "I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel." Gandalf made that choice every day, every moment, for 2,000 years in Middle-earth. But there are even deeper interpretations to consider. Some Tolkien scholars suggest that Gandalf's restraint was also a form of penance. Olórin, in the halls of Manwë, had been reluctant to accept the mission, admitting that he feared Sauron. Perhaps his humility in Middle-earth was a way to overcome that fear through service. Others see even more direct Christian parallels, a divine being who chooses weakness, who triumphs through sacrifice rather than force. Gandalf's death and resurrection in Khazad-dûm certainly evoke these themes, and there are those who argue that having learned compassion from Nienna, Gandalf understood that true power lay in healing, not destroying. His greatest deeds were not in battle, but in the hearts he touched, the hopes he sparked, the courage he inspired. Interestingly, after his resurrection, Gandalf returned as Gandalf the White, Saruman as he should have been. Here we see a slight relaxation of the restrictions. He demonstrates his power more openly, expelling Saruman from the Order, breaking Saruman's staff with a word. But even so, restraint remains. He could have marched alone to Barad-dûr and challenged Sauron to a duel of Maiar. Instead, he continues guiding, advising, preparing others for victory. Gandalf's true victory was not defeating evil with power, but helping others find the strength to defeat it themselves. So why did Gandalf never use his true power? Because his true power was not in the fire and storm of an unleashed Maia. It was in the wisdom of a guide, the patience of a teacher, the love of a friend who believes in you even when you do not believe in yourself. Gandalf teaches us that the greatest heroes are those who empower others to become heroes. That true strength lies in knowing when not to use it. That sometimes the greatest act of power is to trust the small and seemingly insignificant to do great things. As he said to Frodo in the Mines of Moria, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Gandalf chose to use his time not as a god among mortals, but as a friend, a guide, a light in the darkness saying, "You can do it. I believe in you." And that, my friends, is Gandalf's true magic. If you've made it this far, leave a comment. What moment of Gandalf inspires you the most? When did you feel he could have used more power but chose wisdom instead? And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of Middle-earth, we have an entire playlist on the Istari waiting for you. Discover the secrets of the Blue Wizards, the corruption of Saruman, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week we'll explore one of the greatest mysteries of all. What really happened to the Entwives? Until the next journey, guardians of Middle-earth, may the light of Arendelle illuminate your paths,